Time here on BBC Radio London. We can speak now to Jennifer Cronje, who joins me on the line and to discuss the screening programme and the delays to that. Jennifer, good evening to you.
Hi, good evening.
Thank you so much for coming onto the programme tonight. So,
thanks for having me.
I understand from my colleagues that you currently have advanced breast cancer. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. I was diagnosed in 2018, so yeah.
I see.
I'm currently living with advanced breast cancer.
And actually, I suppose ironically, in some ways, diagnosed at a similar age to Sarah Harding from Girls Aloud, the reason we're talking about this tonight, at a very young age, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, my primary diagnosis was at the age of 31, and my secondary advanced breast cancer was at 39, just before my 40th birthday.
I see.
So, yeah.
Okay. Can I just ask you then, given your experiences, you've described it, what does it do to hear stories of people in the public eye like Sarah Harding coming out to discuss her diagnosis so publicly? Is it helpful? Is it useful? How does it make you feel?
It's definitely helpful. I mean, I'm all for speaking out about your diagnosis. It helps other people. It makes people more aware. I have a blog. I talk about my story quite a bit. In fact, I think that young people kind of think they're immune to cancer. They're not going to get it. So I think if they hear about others getting it, it will encourage them to check themselves and become more aware of the effect that it has on younger people as well.
So when you received your primary diagnosis at 31, as you say, was that as a result of you identifying something yourself and saying this isn't right, I'm going to the doctor?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a normal side of symptom. I didn't have any lumps, but I had a discharge. I actually went in for an appointment about a year and a half before. They referred me, said I was fine, and sent me off on my way. And I was happy, thought I was fine, and then I noticed a change, so I went back to the GP and got referred again. And then they did the same ultrasound and nothing showed, but then after a mammogram, it showed that I had what they call microcalcification, which is basically, I mean, I didn't know what it meant, but it's just basically, it ends up being loads of little tumours, basically, in a large area.
And calcification can occur, can't it? And it's not necessarily cancerous.
It's not always cancerous.
No.
That's correct.
So we need to get it all in context. But for you, it sadly was.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And during this 10 years then, since that time, how would you describe your journey?
I think it's hard. Like once you finish your treatment, people expect you to just get back to normal and get on with your life. And you expect to go back to being the same person that you were before. But it's impossible to be the same person that you were before. You've been through so much. It's life-changing. And I guess you always live in fear of this whole reoccurrence or something else happening. And that was my biggest fear. And I lived cautiously because of it. I was afraid of this reoccurrence. And then I think after the 5-year period, I thought, yes, I've got there, I'm fine. And then I think it was 8 years after I finished my treatment, I got this secondary diagnosis, which I thought that's always like, oh my God, that'll be the worst thing in the world, and the worst thing in the world happened. And, unfortunately, life still has to go on after that. It doesn't stop. It's awful, but you still have to live, and you still have to live in hope. It's not, treatment's changed so much in the last few years, and it doesn't mean, when I heard it, I thought, oh my gosh, that means I'm going to die straight away. But it doesn't mean that. It's not an immediate death sentence. Of course, there is the obvious, the average life expectancy is 3.5 years, and only 16% survive over 5 years. And it's scary to hear those.
Of course it is.
Yeah, but I'm not my prognosis, and I have hope. So I know hope doesn't cure your cancer, but I still have hope.
I think that's so important. I really do. I'm a big advocate of a positive mental attitude. I believe it to be true. But what about the impact of the lockdown as well? Did that have any influence on your treatment?
It did. I think with me, it was a case of there was a bit of there was a lot of fear going around in the cancer community. So that we heard that if you had cancer, if you had stage 4 cancer, they weren't going to treat you. So obviously anxiety, panic, and all of that. So I decided to email my oncology team and said, right, what's the plan? And they initially said to me that they wanted to stop my treatment. And for me, that wasn't an option. Like, I've got stage 4 cancer. I can't sit and wait for COVID to be over before I continue my treatment. So I was like, definitely no to that. So what we agreed on was they reduced my dosage of my oral chemotherapy that I had. And they said that the trust policy was that they weren't going to be doing any scans. I ordinarily would have a scan every 3 months. So my scan was cancelled, but I still had my consultation, but over the phone.
I see.
And they asked questions to check whether you're still feeling the same, you're okay. And I was feeling great. Other than my COVID anxiety, I was feeling great.
And did that presence of that COVID anxiety leave you worried about attending hospital at all?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, my hospitals are all free. That was a hotspot.
Yeah.
And that was the reason why they were saying don't come in for scans. And I was fine with that. Stuck in the middle of the 2 big C's, COVID or cancer. Like, what do you do? Which am I more afraid of? It was almost like. It's only more recent I was like, the numbers have come down. I want to come in for a scan. I had a bit of an argument with my team and had to force it. I had my scan a couple of weeks ago, and unfortunately I did have progression, which is not the news that you want to hear. They were like, there were a few new. It wasn't just that my existing tumours had grown. There were new areas as well, and you know, it was a shock to me. I wasn't expecting it. Like I said, I've been working out every day. I was feeling great, and to be told that, well, actually you're not. You're in a worse situation than you were before. And one of my the new areas was my liver, and I know the prognosis for liver is very different because you need your liver. Like with lung metastases and bone metastases, you can survive a lot longer. So you know, it put me into panic mode.
Yes.
So yeah.
You've got a lot on your plate, Jennifer. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but you know, I still always, I mean, I had an appointment today. I'm going to be going on a trial. I have faith in my team. I'm moving to the Royal Marsden, and they're a great hospital. So I completely trust in what they're telling me. So yeah, I'm still hopeful.
Given all of your experience then, and obviously the delays to the screening program and even treatments beginning because of lockdown, what would your advice be to other women specifically, given your experience? And as Iamide was saying earlier on, messaging is absolutely key here. We've got to get this right. And there are certain sections of the community, the VAME community as well, who need to understand that there are different outcomes and prognoses, and it does affect different sections of the community differently, these different types of cancer. So it can get confusing. So we need some clear messaging, don't we? And we need some clear advice as to what to do.
Yeah, that's especially important, I guess, to me as a black woman, the black community, especially with breast cancer. We tend to be diagnosed at a younger age and more aggressive. And I think within the black community, but no one talks about cancer. And, you know, I've been doing some work with a charity called Black Women Rising, and that's what we're trying to make things better. We're trying to encourage people to talk about their stories. At least when other people see another black woman talking about their cancer journey, it will make them think that they need to think about themselves and check themselves. Prostate cancer for men as well is a big thing with black men, but, you know, no one talks about it. And I think it's so important that we talk about what it is that we're going through, our cancer journeys, and, you know, it's sometimes different. And it's important that, you know, black women, black men get involved in clinical trials, because a lot of these drugs aren't tested on us. So we need to get involved. We need to play our part. We can't always just blame it on others and say that, you know, the outreach isn't right for us. It's not. That needs to change as well. The campaigning needs to change. It needs to target us. You need to see more black people in these campaigns, awareness campaigns, so that people see them and think, they're talking about me as well. They're not thinking, this doesn't affect black people, which often happens, you know. So,
that's so important.
You know, it's very important.
And I
very,
know
very important.
if Eddie was here now, he'd be shouting from the rooftops how important this is.
Yeah, for sure.
Of course, and he'd be celebrating your contribution, Jennifer, for that reason as well. Just so we leave on a high note. I'm obviously, I know you. The positive mental attitude thing is Yeah, some people dismiss it. Some people say it's not relevant. It doesn't have any outcome, and actually, in some cases, it can give you false hope. And I appreciate that. But I talk here from some personal experience, watching
Yeah.
my own partner's mother have a diagnosis of ovarian cancer with a terminal diagnosis with 3 months to live, and she
Yeah.
went on to live for 8 years following that
You see,
diagnosis because and she
definitely.
Jennifer, I promise you, I've never met a woman more determined to embrace life
Right.
and all of its positivity. And I
Yeah.
tell you now, as
Yeah.
as the Lord is my witness, that is what extended her life by almost a
For
solid eight
sure.
years.
I truly believe that your mental attitude has a lot to do with how you fare in your treatment. I know a lot of, like you said, a lot of people think that your attitude can't cure you. No, it can't cure you, but it can help you. It can help your immune system. It can help, it helps a lot of things about you. And one thing I have to say is there is no such thing as false hope. There is only hope. And it upsets me when people say that, oncologists always say, right, this is what can happen, but they don't tell the other side of it. There are plenty of people that do thrive with cancer. So, of course you're going to be in a negative space if all they're telling you is the bad stuff. Like, there is no such thing as false hope. There is only hope. And I think we should all have hope,
And support, and we must support each other more.
Definitely.
We must be more
Yeah.
honest about our experience and talk about it as you have been so brave to do. Jennifer, thank you very much for joining us on the programme tonight. I find that totally inspirational. I really do. Somebody who's basically been living with breast cancer, or the threat of breast cancer returning now for 10 years, and not just any 10 years, her entire 30s. When you think, oh, nothing back to my 30s, I was completely footloose and fancy free, didn't have a care in the world. Jennifer's lived that entire decade of her life now, and as she enters into her 40s with that prospect of cancer looming large still, you can, I don't know, I was just soaking up her positivity. That just means everything to me. 0800 731 2000. Do join me. Do come and react. Do tell me your story. Let's do a couple of emails and then we're going